So probably, well, he's definitely the most famous lawyer of my lifetime, and I think the most important lawyer in my lifetime, maybe in the last 100 years, Alan Dershowitz. He's a Harvard Law School professor emeritus. He is also the host of his podcast, The Dersh Show, and we wanted to get him on to talk a little bit about Daniel Penny and a few other things. Hello, Alan. How are you?
Hi. First of all, would you please send my very best to Senator Lee? His father and I were co-clerks together 60 years ago in the Supreme Court. And we had lunch together every day. Why? Because he was a Mormon and couldn't have coffee, and I was an Orthodox Jew and couldn't have almost anything. So we had a separate table, and we would schmooze and talk about everything. And his father, Rex, who was the Solicitor General, was a great, great man. And I think Senator Lee is a great man, too, and I hope he plays a major, major role in the coming administration.
I tell you, I hope he becomes a Supreme Court justice. I think he is. He truly cares about what the founders meant and about the Constitution. I mean, everything he does, it's all based in the Constitution. I will definitely pass it on.
And it's based on his father. I can tell you that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. His father was an amazing constitutional scholar, the dean of Brigham Young Law School.
Wow.
The guy he would have been the greatest Supreme Court justice. Unfortunately, he died very young.
Yeah. So, Alan, first of all, how have you been? I know that, when you said, I think you came out and said you couldn't vote for Joe Biden. I know things got really ugly for you. Have things gotten better at all for you?
Well, I'm in Florida now. Everybody loves me in Florida. As long as I'm not on Martha's Vineyard, I'm doing great. Manhattan is split. Half the people come up to me and yell and scream at me, and half the people will come up to me and tell me how much they admire me. I wear a hat in New York saying "Proud American Zionist," and I get people talk to me about that as well. So, when people come up to me and say, I hate you, I never know. Is it for Trump? Is it for Israel? Is it for who I represented? I never know. I just know they hate me, but I don't know why. That's what happens when you're a controversial lawyer.
Yeah. So let's start with Daniel Penny.
Well, before you do that, I want to wait after I get off the air. I want to hear you defend Black Lives Matter. Because I don't know if you heard yesterday, the head of Black Lives Matter turned to Penny in the courtroom and said, "Hey, buddy, this is a small world." And then he went outside and he talked about strangling people and being violent. I'm not such a big fan of Black Lives Matter. Certainly not after that.
So I'm not a fan of, I can't defend what he said personally to Daniel Penny. But when he said, what would happen, there's no justice, no peace, what would happen, maybe we should start, killing people every time they oppress us. I believe that's constitutionally protected speech. It is ugly. It is awful. But what is that test called, Stu?
The Brandenburg.
Yeah, Brandenburg
test.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, look, I agree with you.
Okay.
If he said it in front of a crowd of people that were surrounding white people, then it would be an incitement. But if he said it in the abstract in a interview, it's just despicable and disgusting. It reminds me of what Justice Brennan once said. Justice Brennan, who wrote an opinion saying it's constitutionally protected to burn the American flag.
Yes.
And he was asked, what would you do if you saw somebody burning an American flag? And Justice Brennan, who was about 5'3" tall, he said, I'd walk up to him and I'd punch him in the mouth, and then I'd defend his constitutional rights.
So let me ask you, because we've had a debate here before we went on the air where I told Stu, I said, I think I'm going to use this as an example because people, they always say, speech has limits and, you can't cry, fire in a crowd. Yes, you can, unless it leads to, a stampede.
Or is likely
to, right.
It doesn't have to lead, but it is likely to lead.
Right.
No, I think you're right. And I think you're right also from a conservative point of view to be defending free speech for all. We can't live in a world in which it's free speech for me, but not for thee.
Exactly right.
I defended the right of Palestinian kids to put up a flag Palestinian flag to commemorate the death of Yasser Arafat. And then when they put up the flag, I defended them, and I got them to be able to put up the flag. I hated that. And then I got up there and I said, when Yasser Arafat died, it's too bad his death was untimely. If he had only died 4 years earlier, he might have had, a resolution in the Middle East. So I'm with you on a very expansive view of free speech.
Yeah. Do you think we're moving? I sense a shift that maybe some of this craziness is that we're waking up to it. You feel that way?
I wish you were right. I hope you're right. Not on the left. The left is so self-righteous. They think that free speech, due process, the right to counsel was written for them. And they have Professor Lawrence Tribe of Harvard Law School defending them. Tribe believes the Constitution was written to promote the Democratic Party. And every constitutional issue he's involved in, you know what his position is going to be. Is it good for the Democrats? If it's good for the Democrats, if it's good for the left, if it's good for the radicals, then the constitutional framers intended it. And if it's bad for them, that's not what the Constitution is. No, we can't have that approach to constitutional law. I don't think we're gaining any ground on university campuses, but I think we are gaining ground in the general public. And I think maybe the Penny result shows that.
Yeah.
I think Penny. I think the Chauvin case in Minneapolis might have been decided a little differently today than it was years ago when he was convicted and still is in jail. I was thrilled by the verdict in the Penny case, and I think it sent a powerful message. I also think that the hung jury, I thought the hung jury first might have been 6-6, 5-7, but obviously the quick verdict on Monday morning suggests that the hungness on Friday was probably 10-2 or 11-1 in favor of acquittal. And so I think that look, that case never should have been brought, and the district attorney should not be the district attorney. He should be defeated. He not only brought this case, he brought that made-up case against Donald Trump. And now he wants to prevent Donald Trump from appealing by saying, well, we're going to put the sentence off for 4 years. We're going to hold the sword of Damocles over your head for 4 years. I'm going to be able to campaign for office saying, I got a conviction against Donald Trump, and he didn't get it reversed on appeal. And I think it's disgusting. He's the worst district attorney in my lifetime in New York history. Remember, that's an office that had Thomas Dewey, that had Hogan, that had Morgenthau, that had Cy Vance, and now it has Alvin Bragg. Oh, my God. What a disgrace.
So let me ask you, because we were talking about what he did on Friday and what the judge allowed. You have to have, if you have a hung jury on the first count, you can't move to the second count. It's a hung jury, and you have to have a retrial, right? It's a mistrial.
Unless the defense asks for it or consents to it, which often happens, but it didn't happen in this case. And so he dismissed the higher count and allowed the jury to deliberate the lower count. Look, in the end, that was good for Penny.
Yes.
Because there's there's double jeopardy now. He can't be tried on either counts because the first count was dismissed. It wasn't hung, it was dismissed. And that means it's jeopardy. And the second, there was an acquittal. So he's free. There's a civil lawsuit against him, but he'll win that civil lawsuit. It'll probably never get past the motion to dismiss because the person bringing it, was a father who had nothing to do with the son. He had no relationship with the son. He became the father only after the killing in order to gain publicity from it.
So he has basically no standing. Is that what you're saying?
I don't think he has real standing to bring the lawsuit. And what's his damages? It's very hard to figure out what they are. And moreover, a jury found that there was no causation in death. There was justification. So I don't think that lawyers interested in the money or even the publicity at this point are going to want to bring that case forward. I think it'll be dropped. It's not like the O.J. case, where clearly there was a strong civil case after he was acquitted, and they won the civil case, although they never collected any money.
Let me switch to politics here.
Sure.
There are things like I believe Anthony Fauci should be investigated. They've already investigated him in Congress, but it should go through a court of law. And if he is found to have done the things that we now believe he did, there should be some sort of penalty for him and anybody else that was involved. I don't care, right, left, Republican, Democrat. We cannot allow this kind of stuff to happen. Now, Biden they suspect, and so we're just speculating here, that he may pardon him in advance. Is that even possible? Before you're charged?
Richard Nixon was pardoned in advance by Ford, not only before he was charged, but before there was even any criminal investigation. He was charged, he was pardoned, and the pardon power, as you said in your introduction, why do we have a kingly pardon power? It's the only remnant of the British rule over the United States. There's nothing else in the Constitution which so emulates the absolute power of kings than the power to pardon and commute. It's without restrictions, and it's without the need to explain. And by the way, you don't even need a document. As soon as President Biden said, "I pardon my son," that act was completed. And by the way, you don't have to accept the pardon. Even if you reject the pardon, and by the way, there are some people who have already said that if Trump pardons me or if Biden pardons me, I'm going to reject the pardon because a pardon makes it sound like I did something wrong.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court under Oliver Wendell Holmes in about 1926 rendered a decision in a case called Biddle versus Petrovich, which said you can't reject the pardon. A pardon is an act of government. It's like immunity. If you're given immunity, you can't reject immunity. You have to testify if you're given immunity. And if you're given a pardon, you also have to testify. So, I think Biden made a big mistake by pardoning his son. He should have commuted the sentence. By pardoning the son, he opens the son up to being asked any questions at all about his criminal background and about his association with anybody else, including his father. Whereas if he gave only a commutation of the sentence, it would mean he doesn't go to jail for a single day, but he can still invoke his Fifth Amendment privilege. So I think it was a blunder on the part of President Biden, who was a lawyer but didn't understand the consequences of a pardon as distinguished from the consequences of a commutation.
Do you think anybody's going to go after him, though? I mean, because there's nothing politically to gain, but I think this is extraordinarily important on principle. We cannot have people selling the power of the office.
Look, I agree with you, and it's been part of politics for a long, long time. I have to tell you, I think Trump has a place in his heart, a warm spot in his heart for the Biden family. He showed some sympathy for Hunter Biden, for his addiction, for all of that. I don't think he's going to try to pile on. Now, whether or not congressional committees call Biden and try to give him the choice of being held in contempt or perjury, that's a different question. But I don't think Trump's going to do it. I think he's going to move on. He wants to have a great 4 years. I want to help him have a great 4 years. I'm not a Republican, but I'm a patriot. I want to see every American president succeed. I have helped every American president. I've consulted and advised them since Jimmy Carter, and I will continue to do it. Any president asks for my help, done. I'm giving it.
That's the way it should be. Thank you so much, Alan. I really appreciate your friendship, and it's an honor to know you. It really is, and to have you on the program.
Well, you're a great man, and it's great to have a conservative who so believes in the Constitution and free speech. And again, send my best to Senator Lee. He's a great man.
I will. Thanks. Good. Alan Dershowitz, you can find him on The Dersh Show. The website is dersh.substack.com.